and welcome to Rolling with Two. I'm Will, and with me as always is the bird voyeur herself,
Sarah.
And today we're doing a two-player perspective and accessibility for Bandada. Sarah, tell us a bit about this game, Bandada.
All right, so the goal is to take the best pictures of beautiful birds through card drafting, dice manipulation, and scoring criteria. So Will, how do the rules change for two players?
So for two players, that's what type of game this is. That does mean there is no banana bot. In fact, if you have any sort of bot type thing, it's going to be in the solo play. And in fact, those are the only two ways to play this game. So you can't go beyond two players.
So this game is geared for a two-player experience with the solo variant, so you can play it on your own.
You can tell that by the fact that the two-player comes first in the rules,
Yes.
and the solo comes second.
Yep. All right, so issues for a two-player experience. We found that if there is a disparity in the skill level between players, that is probably the biggest issue.
Yeah, every decision that's made is very, very tight and very impactful. When you combine those together and you have a shared play space, skill level becomes very obviously
Yes.
imbalanced when someone knows what's going on in the game versus someone who's still trying to figure it out.
Agreed. Now, there is a family mode where it scores less often. The rules are not exactly the clearest, but as long as you choose before you start to play the game when you're going to score, then play that for the rest of the game, it's all going to be fine. So really the challenge is setting everything up to score. And so doing it less often means that it's going to be a little less challenging for cognitive
Right.
overload.
Though I still think there's quite a lot to think about
Yes.
scoring-wise.
Agreed. Now, what it does well is, if you're looking for a head-to-head two-player game, this is really good. There's a high degree of competition between the players as each one's trying to manipulate the dice to help themselves the most for the cards that they've collected and how those cards are going to score.
Yeah, this is one of the smallest games I've ever seen that's so heavy because everything you do matters to you, to the other player, to your current turn, to all your past turns, and it has this snowball effect. So if you're looking for weight in a small game that would normally be a filler, yeah, this is your bag.
Yep, agreed. All right, let's move on to accessibility challenges. There's a few minor things and then one more major issue. Let's start with some of the small stuff. The
Font.
font size.
Yes.
Go ahead.
So they use a very decorative font, which means that it's not very legible. Fortunately, a lot of that is in things like titles, which aren't used.
I mean, yeah, I mean, it's the name of the birds, which, you know, is important thematically, but for mechanism-wise, it uses iconography for most of it. But yeah, the font is not, it's more decorative than functional here.
Right.
Sorry, I lost my train of thought. The blue and black dice, they can potentially blend. It's a very dark blue die, and if you're not playing in the best light, they might blend. I don't think they will for most people.
Yeah. Fortunately, the way the game is set up is you have 3 sets of 4 dice, black, blue, and yellow. You'll roll them, they go on the card. For the most part, they don't go anywhere but the card.
Right, you always manipulate the dice on the card.
Yeah.
So if you are having trouble with the black and blue, hopefully your opponent can help you at least set it up. Or they're basic dice, so you could just substitute, blue for a lighter blue or whatever works for you.
Or a red, or a white, or whatever you don't have colorblind issues with.
Right, because each row is marked on the left side with the symbol, and that symbol is what's used on all the cards.
Yes.
So, yeah.
So black for insects, blue for berries, nuts are yellow.
Right. All right. The explanation, speaking of the iconography, is not the best in the rules. There's some things that need a little bit more clarification. The good news is if you go on Board Game Geek, To the forum for this game. The designer is very active and has a FAQ thread going, so you can ask questions there and get feedback or look that someone else has already asked those questions.
And Sarah made sure to ask some questions.
I did. So there are quite a few questions already asked, and hopefully those are the questions you had, just like us, and you'll find the answer there.
Yeah.
So I think the biggest thing then is the cognitive challenge.
Yes. And the reason for that, again, I said present turn and past turns. The way the game works, and sounds very simple. I'm just going to explain all the game. After you roll the dice, you have the 3 sets. Then you have 3 birds. You choose 1 bird. That bird adjusts the dice in some way. Then you score that bird. Refill the roll. Next person does it. Once everybody has a bird, then you score all the birds you have. So when you grab a bird, you're scoring it twice on a turn. Move on to the next round. You do everything the same, except now at the end, you score all the birds you have, which includes that turn's bird plus the previous turn's bird. And once you get 4 rounds out, your decisions become very, very tight.
Right.
Do I mess up a previous bird? Do I balance it out? If I choose this, will Sarah mess it up?
Yeah.
What will Sarah do to mess me up? And it almost becomes a very big paralysis point, because I know there was times that Sarah was there and she just, it looked like her brain shut off because she just overloaded and she couldn't necessarily see all the choices and keep them all in her head at the same time.
Yeah, this game definitely broke my brain a couple of times. The first few rounds are like, okay, this is challenging. I mean, you only play 4 rounds, but you get to that 3rd round, and then you get to that 4th round, and you are not only balancing, like the 4th round, you have 3 existing birds. Your opponent has 3 existing birds. You're looking at the 3 that are out there. You're going to take 1. Now, it's possible your opponent's going to take 1 of those, or 1 you don't even know about, and just trying to balance all of that so you can still get more points out of your birds than your opponent's going to get. Yeah, that can be a little paralyzing.
And that's the base version. There's actually hidden goals that add even more scoring shenanigans, as well as little birdseed tokens that can allow people to affect the food area of the birds.
Yeah, the dice.
Just a little bit more.
Right.
So right before the end of the round.
Right.
Scores.
So you get more control, but then that's even more choices.
Yes.
Yep. So the game does have a cognitive overload, and this also plays into that issue of if you don't have equal skill level between the 2 players, it's going to compound the challenge one or maybe both players are going to have playing the game.
Yes.
Now, what it does right is the iconography is very distinct for colorblind players, so that's going to be great. They're only 3 different food icons. The rest of the iconography is also distinct. It's just, like we said, not fully explained in some instances. But again, go to Board Game Geek. Also, everything in the game is open information except for if you use the hidden scoring cards. You have to keep them secret. So everything being open, if you have any issues with anything, you can hopefully get help from your opponent if they're feeling generous to help you with things.
Yeah, in fact, it even may be a strategy where I have a secret card and I say, oh, help me, tell me what this is. And that just gives them one more thing that tips them over and their head falls off and rolls down the hallway. Because it's just, they're already overflowing with information.
Right. All right, well, that was it for accessibility. So on to the conclusion.
Yeah, so for 2 players, would you recommend this?
I would, assuming that both players are either equal level of skill or there's some, I don't know, agreement that this is a teaching game if someone is of less skill, wants to learn the game and get better at it. But otherwise, yeah.
Yeah, I'd say 2-player, heavy skill base. So I actually wouldn't really recommend families for this, despite the fact how approachable the theme is. It does not feel light enough for family. Even the family variant of scoring, there's still a lot going on here. Now, I mean, that might be a sort of a teaching tool that you work with your kid on. But I still feel that the people that are going to get the most out of this are the hardcore gamers
Yes.
that like a very crunchy filler small box game.
Yep. Agreed.
So, accessibility.
I say yes, there's very few issues. Again, the main one's going to be cognitive, and you already probably know by this point if this game is going to be for you or not. But other than the cognitive accessibility, for vision accessibility, it's very good. Other than the names, I think, like we said, the font was not that great. Everything else is really good.
Yeah, completely agree. Most of the time, I'm the one with issues because of how poor my vision is and how much Sarah has to help. This one, I almost had to help her
More.
where she like slowed down and I'm like, okay, slow down, breathe. Let's go through the steps. What do you want done? And I talked her through the steps. So I was the one giving her accessibility help in that respect.
Agreed.
But if it's like a pure vision thing, no, there's
Right.
no issue with that. It's purely cognitive. So that will do it for us here at Rolling with Two. If you have any questions, comments, or concerns, like how to get the game, because it's kind of a rare game, right?
Well, I got it from a Kickstarter that was fulfilling, and you can currently find it on the publisher's website, which I am blanking at the moment. Runaman Games, RUNNAMAN Games. Check out their website. I do believe it's available directly from them. Other than that, I don't know about a retail release.
Okay, so yeah, if you have any questions like that, you can reach us on the various social media platforms at
Rolling with Two, that's TWO. We're on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. And on YouTube, please like and subscribe.
And that'll do it for us. We've been Rolling with Two.